Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Mac from the SaaS Bootstrapper. Hello.
Hi, Christian. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you on the podcast. Great to have you. Please tell us a bit about yourself and what is your story.
Oh, let's see. Well, I'm currently living in Valencia, Spain, with my wife and two boys. We're
Wonderful.
on digital nomad visa. We're from the US. I've spent a lot of time building SaaS apps and software and sort of entrepreneurship, and a lot of failures and a couple successes, and just kind of still keeping at it and figuring out what's next, and kind of doing a lot of traveling the world at the moment too. So having a good time. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think it's a dream for a lot of entrepreneurs. But I'm curious to know, what are you doing right now exactly? You are helping bootstrappers, right?
Yeah, so I sold my last SaaS almost 3 years ago now, and shortly after that, we decided to leave the U.S. And so there's been a lot of sort of family time and kind of re-envisioning what I want to do. And so I found that the story of my last SaaS was resonating with people, and so I decided to create a newsletter called the SaaS Bootstrapper, where I just kind of share everything that I've learned and everything that I'm continuing to learn and what I'm doing now. And so it's been a process of kind of re-envisioning what I want to do, because I do love SaaS, but I love a lot of things. I'm finding that I really love writing and sharing and meeting people. And so, so right now I have the SaaS Bootstrapper, which again is a newsletter, but I'm trying to kind of re-envision what it could become more of a community, more inclusive. Sometimes I feel like I'm just writing to people, and I want to kind of include people more. I also am working on a SaaS app called Aware that it's actually been out a while. It's profitable. I have a co-founder with that. That is a LinkedIn engagement tool. So you can think of it as like custom LinkedIn feeds of who you want to engage with. And then I have two more SaaS apps that I'm working on with separate people, where I'm kind of more the face of it, more sort of the marketing side, and they're the developers. And so those, I will be announcing those soon. We're in very early stages for both, but they're really around growth, or like pre-launch growth for really anyone with a product, but focused on SaaS, and then early stage SaaS. So in the sort of analytics and metrics realm.
Okay, but traditionally, you're a developer?
Yes, yeah. So my background is in development. I worked at Adobe for a long time, actually, and that's really where I taught myself to code.
And then how did you learn to market and sell?
How to market?
How did you learn to do sales and marketing?
Well, for the first very many apps that I built, I didn't do any sales and marketing, which is a common thing for developers. The thing that changed with my most successful SaaS app, which was called Castanet, that I sold a couple years ago, the thing that was different about that was, instead of building just something that I kind of came up with or scratched my own itch, which works for a lot of people, but for me, it just didn't at the time. So I went out and talked to a lot of different people, really with no end goal in mind other than to hit on a market common pain point among common people. And so that whole idea came from just talking to a lot of people and just like gradually being like, okay, sales teams are cool because they have money that they're not afraid to spend. Okay, what's their real problem? Oh, lead generation is a super valuable problem. Okay, what within that? So it was just a lot of conversations going in to hone in on the problem. And so by the time I figured out what that was going to be, and the time I figured out or that I was ready to launch anything, I had a huge list of people that I had talked to already that knew me, knew generally what I was working on. And so that was the first good, I don't have an exact number, but like dozens of customers certainly came from a combination of those people that I had had conversations with early on, and the people that they referred. Those people, I'd probably a combination of liking the product, but also having a personal relationship with me. It helps people with trust and want to talk about it more. So I went kind of recently and looked at the first customers that came in. And like I said, it was mostly people that I had been talking to or people that were referred
Nice.
through those. And so that, you're asking about sales and marketing. I mean, really, the very beginning of any app that I built that went anywhere at all, it was sort of word of mouth and relationship and like really talking to people and trying to understand the problem more than going out and starting to run ads or whatever, which, people have different ways. There's a million ways to skin a cat, but that's seems to be the pattern for me, and like what works is making
I
sure
think that's the most important part in finding the problem. So
yeah. And so from there, I mean, I think it's once you have that, it starts to become kind of obvious who the people are, who you're targeting, and what the problem is, and the messaging, and so the rest of it comes much more naturally than if you're just starting from scratch. Like, how do I?
Absolutely. And the two other projects, the two other SaaS that you mentioned, with co-founders, you found them through the community?
Yes, both of them actually. So I've been more active on Twitter or X in the past maybe year or less. I was never very active on social media previously, and I don't have a lot of friends that are doing what I do, and so I've had different ways in the past of how to kind of immerse myself in more people doing that. And so one of the things I was trying not that long ago was being on X, and I've had a good time on there and found some good people. But yeah, so every once in a while I get a message, either a reply to my newsletter or on X or somewhere, and I feel like I can just get just with the first message of somebody that writes something thoughtful and the way they speak, the way they articulate themselves, and just I feel like I can sense their energy, and so every once in a while I'll just be like, let's get on a call. Like before I even respond to what they're asking or saying, I say, let's get on a call, and we'll hop on a call and just meet. And so both of these projects came from basically something like that, where I'm just like, I like this person's energy. They just seem cool. They seem excited. They seem open to whatever. And so we just get on the call and like, hey, what do you, be open to doing a side project.
They came to you for help because they saw you as a thought leader, or you just wanted to see what you do? And
I'm trying to remember the second one specifically, how it came up, but the first one was more just like inspired, I think, by the newsletter and by my story, and just saying, kind of thanks and telling me what they were doing in their history and kind of what their struggle was. But it was like, it was kind of just like a hey, I like what you're doing. Your stories are inspiring.
That's amazing.
And so,
And how did you build up the newsletter? How did you find the first members, let's say?
Yeah, good question. I think the first few came from X, mentioning it on there. And I think early on I did a few direct messages to people to let them know about it. But then posting on Indie Hackers, with a link, a valuable post where at the end I say, I also write more similar stuff in the SaaS Bootstrapper. Mm-hmm. That has been helpful. Reddit can be hit or miss, but I've had some posts that resonated pretty well there that also, at the end would link to the newsletter in different ways. And so now I'm at about a couple thousand people, and so I'm kind of starting to get into looking into some different opportunities, but really just taking my newsletter posts and posting them in other places has helped. And then some word of mouth and some sharing. And now I've had a couple of viral posts on X since, and whenever that happens, the number of subscribers certainly jumps.
Do you see better engagement on X or the LinkedIn?
I see better. Well, it's interesting. I see a lot of other people having good engagement on LinkedIn because I have LinkedIn tools, so I'm pretty tuned into it. I personally enjoy X more, so I personally get better engagement on X. I think it depends. I think the creator space, there are a lot more creators and people talking about the things that I talk about on X. I think LinkedIn, I've had a harder time finding sort of my space on LinkedIn, and again, I think it depends what you do. I see a lot of people saying the opposite, or saying that there's a lot of sort of a missed opportunity to be a creator on LinkedIn. So I'm there, but I'm not. It's sort of secondary for me now, and I do have a LinkedIn tool now, but my co-founder is more. He's like all in on LinkedIn, and so that's kind of where that comes from. So yeah.
Nice. And I saw you mentioned on LinkedIn talking about that you grew your first SaaS from 0 to 61K MRR in 2.5 years. So can you please tell us the story?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I sort of did in how I got to a point where I kind of wasn't having success with just building whatever I thought of. And so I went out and I started talking to a lot of people. And that's really where that came from. It was like a number of months of going out and having maybe 5 meetings or coffee at a time. I would reach out to people that I knew to start, and take them for coffee, and then ask for intros of other, and it was kind of a process, like I said, of honing on sales teams. And I had no real opinion at the beginning. I was just like, I just want to see if I can get other people to tell me what their problem is. And so that was it. And so then, eventually I got to the point where I felt like I had something that I should build out, and I spent 4 weeks on it. And I think it was like 4 weeks to the day where I launched it, and I was swiping cards, and it was a good price point. I think it started at $99. I probably gave some discounts then, but like that, I really learned that a price point like that, ideally 99 or 49 can be okay, but like it's really nice because you can see progress much faster than if you're doing something. This is obvious, I know, but like a $9 a month thing, but especially as a single, you can start to see things tick up pretty quickly. So yeah, I grew it for 8 months or so, and really just it was a direct, like a LinkedIn tool to create campaigns where you can automatically like send messages, connection requests and messages to people. And there's a bunch of these now. When I started in 2018, there weren't very many at all.
Yes, I know.
So really, I once, after like a whole bunch of conversations and knowing my market, knowing the messaging, I was able to run the campaigns with the tool to grow it. And that's how a lot of the growth came. Eventually, about, I was at like 8K or 9K, maybe 6 months in or something. I had a customer ask me if I would be up for white labeling it so we could resell it. Okay. And so for anyone who doesn't know what a white label is, in short, it's like someone else's brand over the same tool so they can promote it and resell it and take a cut of what they sell. And so initially I just thought, no, I don't have the capacity for that. I'm kind of maxed out. And then over time, a few weeks later, I realized, I'm like, a lot of my time of selling was demos. I would frame them as like, can I just show you what I'm working on? I'm not a hard sales guy. So I would say, can I just show you what I'm working on? But for me, it was ultimately like, I was hoping for a sale, right? Or at least to learn. I always learn from it.
Right. Of course.
But anyway, so I was like, I can't scale what I'm doing right now. I can't scale all these calls. And so then I just thought, well, maybe if this guy really can actually sell it, maybe I can take some of the sales off my plate and focus on the product and focus on support and just all the other parts of them. There's a million other things that once you start to have a successful SaaS, like you don't even think about, that now all of a sudden you have to deal with. So anyway, I reconsidered and I thought, well, okay, what would it take for me to do this? So I did. I white labeled it and I reached back out to him. And so he started to resell it under a separate brand. And then in the end, I had 4 people doing that. And so that's what enabled me to scale it the way that I did without employees and without hiring people.
So it was only you?
Yeah, I was the only.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you sold the company?
And then, 2.5 years later, I sold it. I got to the point of either, it was doing really well. And so the cool thing was, like, it took a lot for me to add new features because I'm just not in the feature rate. I was like, this is providing value to a lot of people. I don't want to add more than I need to. So there would be times when I would be in a great place and didn't have a massive amount I had to do. But the problem was that when things went bad, it could be really bad. Like, it was just kind of a sensitive product. Like, I don't really view it as like mission critical, but the customers kind of did. And so if things broke for a minute, I would be hearing about it and they would not be happy. And so it became a lot of pressure. So while I could, in theory, be on vacation, it was like, if I get a message, it could be really bad. And it was just like, it kind of overtake me. And so I realized later how much stress that put on me.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I can still feel it. Like, not this much time later, it was a lot. And so anyway, I got to the point where like, I need to unload some of this stress. And so it was, I either need to hire people or I need to sell it. And so I decided to sell it. And really one of my lessons in that was that like, I had almost waited too long to hire, which really just because I felt so at capacity that then trying to bring if I were to hire, it would have been a developer, right? And the learning curve there, I don't know, maybe I could have gotten someone great, but I felt like it was like last thing I can really handle is bringing someone else up to speed on all this stuff. And so kind of a lesson to me now, and I'm paying attention to it with my current projects of like, at what point does it make sense to bring on some help so that I am not super maxed out?
Yeah, makes total sense. But I'm curious, did you sell to any of the companies that were white labors?
No.
Okay. Okay. What do you see as the top 3 biggest mistakes that bootstrappers make?
Well, the biggest one that comes to mind is building without talking to people, building and then spending weeks or months building, and then trying to get it out there, thinking that I mean, for anyone who codes and for most people, building a product is easy. I mean, and the marketing part is hard. So, okay, I mean, the first one is certainly just not talking to people early enough. I mean, I guess if I have to say 3, they're sort of all sort of tied together. It's like not talking to people early enough, building too much too soon, not listening to their customers. It's all really, I feel like, around being customer driven, or it doesn't have to be, I guess, but like knowing how you're going to market it. So there's been some interesting, actually I put a tweet up yesterday about how people come up with their ideas. And I find there's some really interesting approaches, right? Like the people that know that they don't like to market, or they're scared of marketing, or they don't want to, the good ones, they find a way how to like solve that first. So a couple of the really interesting ones are like doing keyword search first. Danny Postma, I always mention him for doing this because that's how he builds all his products, which is just going into a tool like Ahrefs and spending forever, finding underserved keywords that he knows people are searching on, that he can rank for. And he has like a little formula sort of how he knows if he can rank for it. And then tries to think if he can build a product around it and what the value of that might be and if it would be worth it. And so, if you're someone who doesn't like marketing and knows you're not going to want to, he knows that he will get X amount of traffic if he can get on the first page of Google. That's a great one. Building in marketplaces can be good because you get built-in traffic. And then another interesting one is buying expired domains or buying an existing domain that already has a bunch of backlinks and traffic and building a product on that. And it's sort of another similar to the keyword approach of getting a bunch of marketing. And so kind of going on a tangent to your question, but those are by far like the biggest, I would say, mistakes that I see.
Thank you for sharing. And right now you're also coaching bootstrappers.
I've started doing some. I don't actively promote that, but I was getting enough for people replying to the newsletter or somewhere asking if I did that, and so I tossed that option up recently.
Okay, so it's only for people that really want to talk to you to get your advice.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I there's like an application process or anything. It's just that I'm not like actively saying, hey, I'm coaching.
Yeah, I understand. And from your insights, do you see bootstrapping as a growing trend, let's say? Are more and more people starting to bootstrap?
For sure, I do. And there have been a lot of discussions around it. And I started in this space, or at least I was sort of aware of this space in 2006, 2007, early on when it was, Basecamp was young and, so it's funny looking back how few of us there were and how big the, just how it was all about startups and raising money. That's sort of what the talk was, right? And now it's a lot less of that. And I think partially because people realize that they can do it, they don't have to raise money, but also the technology and the tools, like you don't have to even know how to code to build things. And people are realizing, well, even if I don't want to build a product or a software, I can build a course or these things. And, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think the creator community is interesting because there are a lot of people creating things for other creators, which at some point is going to there's only so much of that we can take. But, right. At the same time, I think it's sometimes I can find myself getting kind of overwhelmed with that and be like, oh God, the competition is crazy. There's so many people now, and I'm getting older. There's all these young people that are way smarter than me, just doing amazing things. But at the same time, with the technology, with all these new technologies and AI, the amount of opportunities gets way bigger too. So I try to remind myself of that if I ever get kind of scared of all these other, how am I going to compete with all these? Well, it happens,
Right.
With innovation comes, more competition, but also more opportunity. So.
Thanks for that. And what would be your best piece of advice for a starting bootstrapper? Let's say somebody that's young, after college, looking to build their first bootstrap company.
To keep your site small, I feel like a lot of people, this is sort of another maybe mistake of a lot of people, but is trying to aim too big and feeling like you have to do this, have some world changing. Now I'm coming up with all the answer to your question before, mistakes people make. And so one of them is being afraid of competition. People are afraid of competition, thinking they need an idea that no one's ever come up with. It's not going to happen.
Yes.
Competition is a good thing. It means that there's a market for it, all these things. So just pick something, I know that I still tend to kind of overthink things and oh, but there's someone else already doing it. So what? Great. And I just would say, start small, try to get $1 online, try to get $10. Start a newsletter, try to get someone's email address. Just anything, build a Chrome extension or, again, it's just whatever sounds fun, whatever, but not letting yourself get too sucked up into building anything too big. Just try to, everyone's different, some people want to grow an audience, some people don't, some people want to code, some people don't. So it all comes back to just coming up with something and starting small and trying to get $1, not trying to overthink it, not trying to, because we learn from all of it, but even with the newsletter, it seems, after having sold a product that was $99 a seat to just trying to capture an email, it seems like it would be so easy. In comparison, I guess it is, but it's also, it's it's still hard.
Yes.
Right?
I can imagine.
Any of these things to just get used to getting out in front of people, getting your product in front of people, and getting out into the world and away from your little coding box.
Yeah, great piece of advice. Thank you. I have one last question that I ask everybody on the podcast. So, what's your favorite software that you use and you'd recommend to other people? Your favorite SaaS?
My favorite SaaS? Well, the one thing I use every day now that I'm loving is AudioPen for, I guess it's a SaaS. I pay annually for it. So, for walking around in audio to, doing audio translation. I use it for all getting my ideas out, but also for getting big drafts of content out. So I can I'm not the best typer, so it's much faster for me to do it that way. So I've been really enjoying that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Is there anything else that you want to tell us today on the podcast?
Just keep going. The other sort of big thing, I'm going to toss in one more because, I think a lot of people expect results really early and really soon. And they see, it's easy to focus, especially if you're on social media or, seeing the success of others and things and wonder what's wrong with you and all this. And the reality is most of us that have had any success had a whole bunch of failures before. I actually have a post about this somewhere of just like all these names. If you're active on X, like, all these names, all these people had a ton of failures before the success. So, just trying not to get discouraged that it's not happening as fast as you want, and just hang in there and try to have fun with it. Keep going.
Thank you so much, Mac. You did fantastic, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.